Welcome to my podcast entitled The Wright Experience. I am Dr. William T. Wright Jr., the founder and host of this show. I'd like to take a moment to dedicate this show tonight to the memory of my brother-in-law, Donald Ray Barnes. During the past 23 years as a professional educator, I've been fortunate enough to get to know and work with some amazing leaders all across the United States. The vision of this show is to share these podcasts with you so we can learn from people who are leading each other every day. Our initial focus will be on educational leaders. We'll look at expanding to other disciplines down the road. When you hear something that you like, please drop us a comment, click like, or if you're viewing us via YouTube, don't forget to click like and that subscribe button. Tonight is episode 10 of The Wright Experience. My guest tonight has the unique combination of having served as the K-12 school leader as well as at the higher education level. He is currently serving as the president of Chowan University. He and I met upon his arrival back in Murfreesboro as president and have worked together collaboratively ever since. I'm also fortunate enough to be on his staff as an adjunct professor. In addition to that, a couple of years ago, he handed my youngest son his bachelor's degree, which of course was a proud moment. My guest tonight is Dr. Kirk Peterson. Dr. Peterson believes in educating and nurturing students in a student-centered environment by placing great instructors and staff members in front of students and providing opportunities through demanding and thorough curricula that celebrate the exceptionality of all students. Dr. Peterson feels that education should provide and promote safe yet challenging environments for students to grow academically, personally, socially, intellectually, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Part of Dr. Peterson's vision for Chowan is to create and continue the effort to recruit and retain students as well as growing and improving the physical plant. He has a desire to work with the faculty to bring in innovative academic programs, many of which we'll probably hear about tonight, and work closely with the students to gauge their feelings and listen to their needs. Previously a member of the River of Life Christian Center, Dr. Peterson is now a member of Murfreesboro Baptist Church. He and his wife, Rachel, met as neighbors in Prattville, Alabama, and have since been married for over 23 years. Dr. and Mrs. Peterson have three sons, Caleb, Cody, and Justin. The Petersons enjoy traveling together as a family and spending time out on the ball field with their sons. I've seen some wonderful pictures of that on Facebook. Dr. Kirk Peterson was named the 23rd president of Chowan University by the Board of Trustees on February 15, 2018, and assumed the office on June 1st, 2018. No stranger to Chowan, he first served at the university in 2004 as chair of what is now the Sports Science and Physical Education Department. Throughout his tenure, he also served as assistant dean for academic affairs and as assistant provost. Based on the needs of the institution's service area, Dr. Peterson has helped found Chowan University's first master's program and served as founding dean of the university's graduate school, which offered the only Christian university master's degree program east of North Carolina's I-95 and the only elementary education master's degree program within a 60-mile radius. Prior to returning to Chowan University, Dr. Peterson served as interim president of Urbana University in Urbana, Ohio. While president, Dr. Peterson successfully negotiated the merger of Urbana University with Franklin University, retaining the university's discipline-specific and regional accreditation. After saving Urbana University from absolute closure, Dr. Peterson also served as superintendent of two private schools in Ohio. So as you see, his breadth of experience as both faculty and administrator in higher secondary and elementary education uniquely prepared him to lead Chowan University and uniquely prepares him to be an outstanding guest on my show. I'm absolutely honored to have my friend join me at this time, Dr. Kirk Peterson. Welcome to the Wright Experience, Dr. Peterson.
Thank you, Dr. Wright. It's an honor to be here, and do want to let you know that our family's praying for you and your family during this time of loss as well.
I do appreciate that. My brother-in-law was indeed a special person. I do appreciate that. Dr. Peterson, we've got some great questions here tonight. I wanted to start right out with an opportunity for you to tell us about the wonderful things that are going on at Chowan University. Not all of our listeners are as familiar with Chowan University and all the wonderful things that are going on and that you have to offer. So take some time to tell us about what I call now the land of the Hawks.
All right. Well, also we're quite pleased and certainly blessed to have you as an adjunct professor. Some of the things that are happening at Chowan, we're looking at bringing in current, relevant, and transformational academic programs under the guidelines certainly SAC-COC, accrediting body, any kind of discipline specific. Here as of late, we've started a Master of Organizational Leadership, and we have 15 students in that this spring, which was the inaugural class. This fall, it looks like we're going to have 35 plus students in the class.
Oh, wow.
With that also, we've incorporated a Master of Arts in Teaching, and really with you involved in this program, we believe that this will be a very helpful, transformational type of program, not only for Hertford County, but the 5 contiguous counties, including maybe Suffolk and also Halifax County. We know that there is tremendous need to have licensed teachers in rural America, and we know that that is no different in rural North Carolina. And this Master's of Arts Teaching will provide that necessary license for the school systems and for those teachers, so we put the very best in front of our students. Regardless of urban or rural, they deserve the very best, and I'm very pleased that we're able to do that. We had very few people in it now, but really was supposed to start out this upcoming fall. The pandemic certainly has put a major damper on the success of that program so far. But I think that now that we're starting to see the light of coming out of this pandemic, and with the vaccinations, and certainly looks like the antiviral medication that will be available in 2021, we can bring that 5 contiguous counties, Suffolk and Halifax County, to the table, break bread with the superintendents and HR directors, and talk about the value of having such a program and be able to offer it at state university prices. And bring it directly to the teachers, and so it's convenient, but that doesn't necessarily mean easy, but challenging, convenient, challenging, and to help our neighbors, because higher education, and specifically Chowan University, we want to be a regional hub of expertise. We want to be able to be nimble enough that we are able to address the needs of our school partners, and Hertford County schools are some of our main partners in K-12 education, and we're proud of that partnership. And 11 student teachers from Chowan University and Hertford County schools today, and I pray that each one of them have done the job to earn a full-time position. So
they have great people.
So we have graduate programs. We're looking at undergraduate programs. We also are looking at really trying to develop leaders at Chowan University. We have a dynamic vice president for student affairs, Dr. Montrose Streeter, who's originally from Pitt County, and was a first-generation college student, and he is dynamic and really trying to develop. And they brought a leadership academy to the university for our students, really working with the Student Government Association. So we're really trying to focus on the entire student and to prepare them academically gifted in leadership, but also give them athletic experience, but most importantly, grounded in the Christian faith. And so that Christ-centered experience is hallmark for Chowan University. In fact, this fall, we anticipate breaking ground on a new facility on campus. And in fact, the most important building that will ever be built on campus will be the church that we build, and it will have taken almost 175 years to do. But it's a beautiful 177-seat church right on the campus of Chowan University, used by our campus minister, Reverend Mary Wiles, for our students, so that they can praise God and enjoy church services and fellowship. So a lot of things happening, and really excited about everything that's going on.
Exciting times for sure. Now, the student enrollment is around what for our listeners?
About 1,000 students. We've been as high as 1,500, and
Okay.
we've been in earlier days, 2003, 4, when the school was really in trouble. They had 500-600 students.
Sure.
But there is a demographic cliff that's happening across the nation with a number of college age students
Right.
decreasing, and so we're doing everything we can to keep our place in the market.
Okay. You mentioned already the church being one of the. What are some other future plans, if you have any at this time, for the university that you can share?
Well, I think it's really important. We want to bring track and field to campus.
Mm-hmm.
I think, in fact, Dr. Wright, we haven't had a chance to talk about it, but we may even ask to start at your track,
Right.
and then be able to build our own track. But to do that, I think would be incredibly helpful for our athletic program, which has 22 athletic programs, including men's JV basketball, cheerleading, and that would be a wonderful addition for us.
Right.
That would include quite a bit of a little bit of building and certainly some movement. Right now, we have a soccer field that's also used for lacrosse as well. We would like to turf it, put lights on, and then be able to build that track closer to the maintenance facility. But it would be a wonderful addition. The other is that we're very excited. Our men's and women's basketball have seen new leaders. Lenny Stallings has taken over for women, and Rob Burke, which is a graduate of Hertford County High,
Mm-hmm.
graduate of Chowan University, and his father, legendary coach Bob Burke, fourth winningest coach in North Carolina history. But Rob is coming home to lead the men's team, and so there's a lot of things that are happening on campus that are very exciting.
Very good, very good. I'm looking forward to seeing him in action.
Absolutely.
Really soon. So, with the many options that are available to students, Dr. Peterson, what makes Chowan the right choice?
Wow. I can say this: it's always been about the people at Chowan University, and the faculty and staff. It's not just a job; it's a calling. We have so many folks that have spent 20, 30, 40 years at Chowan University. In fact, tomorrow we'll be celebrating Dr. John Davis's retirement. He's been at the university over 40 years. I think it's absolutely remarkable and testimony as to the quality of place that it is when you have people who stay 4 decades. That's hard to imagine, especially in today's age. The other is that the students are going to gather, and they're going to get a face-to-face education. This entire year, for example, while we were one of the very few universities that was face-to-face the entire year, we know our students. We care about our students. And often when I talk to parents and prospective students, I use the acronym TEAM. One, we teach incredibly well. 85% of our faculty are terminally degreed. The students are being taught by experts in their field. Second, we're going to engage the student. We're going to engage the student, whether it's in student life or if it's athletics or through its campus ministry. You're going to have opportunities. And then we're going to advise. And that's one of the things that even I do. As president of the university, I've taught and I advise students. And I have to constantly be reminded of why I do the job I do, and that's for the students. So advising is incredibly important to us. And then we're going to mentor. And that mentoring that lasts well beyond the college years. For example, I had such a relationship with my swim coach that he traveled 1,300 miles south from Wisconsin to give a 60-second benediction at my inauguration in 18. So
I remember that. I sure do.
It's incredibly special
Sure.
when we have that mentoring relationship, and we do that at Chowan very, very well. So, it's that face-to-face, it's that personal but challenging curriculum, but the interaction we have between the faculty and staff and the students is absolutely remarkable. People who follow through and graduate will have those experiences. And yesterday, I had a chance to meet with 5 alum, and they were just glowing in their memories of working with our faculty and staff and the closeness. And so I just think it's always been about people. And for Rachel and me to come back to Northeast North Carolina, where I think truly some of the nicest, the most hospitable people that we've ever come across, it has been a blessing, and we want to extend it to our students.
And I've noticed even speaking of Mrs. Peterson, that she is busy mentoring students. In fact, I showed up to my classroom one night and she was finishing up some really deep interaction with some students to get some work done. And I think that's a credit to her as well as you and your leadership. So.
Well, I tell you, Rachel is remarkable. She helps with a couple of faculty members, a help club on campus. And we've had 8 young ladies over at the house of Rachel's having a bake night for them so they could go and solicit funds on campus to help produce graduation bags or final ready bags, and so it's fun to see her involved and this role as president. My wife is not necessarily a paid employee, but she is certainly an incredibly invaluable employee for Chowan. As a matter of fact, I tell the board all the time, I said that she's a far better employee than I. She worked at Chowan when we were here from 2004 to 10 in the library. So, she loves this place. She loves the students and certainly, and I think that shows. Yeah.
Absolutely. So Dr. Peterson, our audience may have some viewers tonight who might be interested in becoming a leader in higher education. And you're actually our first higher education leader on purpose. I did that on purpose. And so maybe even they might have aspirations to ascend to a college presidency at some point.
Yeah.
What advice would you give them?
Don't do it. I'm just kidding. Higher education is depending on if you decide to go public or private. It's interesting. The irony is that all my education was in public schools, from pre-K all the way through PhD. It was public, and ever since I left, I've been involved with private. And I think for me, the lack of bureaucracy was one of the reasons why I chose private over public. But also, I wanted the Christian influence. So I worked at Gardner-Webb University, was one of the 5 Baptists. Chowan, which is also one of the 5 Baptists schools in North Carolina. So it was very important to me. So I have 2 masters and a PhD, and I don't think that everyone has to have 2 masters and a PhD. I think you can have a master's, PhD, or just PhD. But I think it's incredibly important. One of the hallmark programs is higher education leadership and educational leadership programs. That's also one of those programs that delves into not only academic theory but also in business management, because the one thing about higher education is that this is a business. So I have 4 degrees in psychology. So how did I get into the business? And that's where Urbana University comes into play. I earned basically an MBA in accounting, finance, and banking through that experience. So knowing that this is a business and it has to be treated as such, you always hear that, from the academic side of the house, that the university or college was never meant to make money. Well, I agree, but it's never meant to lose money as well. In private education, faculty staff get raises on surplus, where you can reinvest in your faculty and staff and so on. But I think it's incredibly important that you rise to the ranks. And right now I'm trying to bring a young man from Tennessee to campus in the next week. And he has a bachelor's, he has a master's. Now it's time to get him into the right field. And he's going to start into admissions. As you well know, admissions is a very, very popular way to get and to ascend to a presidency. The business office can also be a part of it. Student affairs can be. You don't see many of it come through athletics, except for Jim Tressel up in Youngstown State is one obvious example. But admissions and through business and also through sometimes advancement too, that's very important. But you got to earn your stripes. You got to get in, and you've got to be able to start at the ground level, because at a president, you've got to be able to look at every aspect of the university and be able to provide direction, provide vision, and provide correction where it's needed. And that doesn't matter if it's in the curricula all the way to how we invest stuff in funds. And for example, Chowan University, we have over $30 million in the bank and endowment. And that's a lot of it in scholarship and things. But it's also, how do we invest it? What is the risk that we're willing to take in order to make the most on our investments, so that way we can give more scholarship dollars to students, so we can build our enrollments. And it's pretty fascinating. So this experience of trying to ascend to the presidency, I can honestly say that I did not start in higher education for that reason. I started to be a professor and a therapist, and then I mentioned 4 degrees in psychology. So I wanted to practice as a therapist as well. But Dr. White had plans to bring me here to help with the physical education department, and I kind of just took off in administration. And I can say that you've got to have some real thick skin. There is never a day where everyone's going to be happy with you. And you've got to be able to just bridge that gap. You've got to be able to say, but I did what's best for the institution first. I did what's best for the students second. And I've held to that philosophy my entire career. While I'm not making everyone happy, I've been able to put my head on a pillow each night and look at my wife and say, I think I did the very best I could. So it is a grinding experience. It's getting in the classroom. It's getting in the admissions. It's getting in the business. It's getting into the advancement. And it's all difficult, but it's very, very worthwhile. But I also want to say, if you have listeners that are looking at this, it's not impossible. Sure. It's not impossible. Thousands of people do it every day, so it's not impossible. And I had students. They said, "Well, Dr. Peterson, you're smarter." No, my IQ is not much better than my students, and maybe even less. But what I always said is that you're not going to outwork me. Right. I'm just going to put in the hours. I'm going to put in the sweat and blood equity. And I think that part of it. So when it comes down to it, it becomes a choice. It's how much do you want it? How bad do you want to go for it? And you have to, in a higher education, you're not going to start at the same university and probably become president at the same. You're going to have to move on to move up. And then you might be fortunate, like me, to come back to where you started. But it's a grinding experience.
Sure. And it doesn't happen overnight, which is what we talk about often with aspiring leaders. Is it is a process, and as you said, you've got to create some building blocks to get to.
And you're gonna have to take your lumps. Sure. And you got to be able to take criticism. You got to be able to take and understand your weaknesses in order to make them strengths. And for that, you have to have people around you who are willing to criticize constructively, but they're willing to do so. So when I bring people into the senior team, when I was being interviewed, they said, "What kind of employee do you want?" I said, "It's two simple things. I want someone who's smarter than I and wants my job. My job is to put smarter people around me to help me make the best decisions. And when I say I want someone who wants my job, I'm not saying circumvent me to take my hero position, but wants to ascend to the position. I know how hard I had to work, but I was also incredibly blessed by having people in my life to give me a chance to excel."
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the pandemic itself and so forth. What lessons have you learned as a leader through navigating the pandemic that you think might be helpful in the future?
I tell you, it's a day by day.
Sure.
It's every day is different. So patience. If you don't have patience and you don't have good people who are willing to disagree with you around you, then you can't be methodical about how you approach handling a pandemic. I am not so arrogant to believe I have all the answers, and I'm not too proud to ask for help. So when we have an issue and we have to bring the senior team in, I'm asking them to ask their subordinates, and then I'm asking them to help me. So where do we need to go? What do I not know? And what are you going to tell me to help me understand this? And so I think that it's very, very important to understand that the people you have around you, yourself, they've got to be bright people. They've got to be somewhat risk takers, but they got to be calculated risk takers. And they have to know they can push back against you. because iron sharpens iron.
Sure.
And you don't want a bunch of yes folks, because then you get in that sense of groupthink, and that's not good for anyone. So inside my senior team room, my office, we may disagree, we may argue, but when we walk outside that office, we are resolute as a team what we're going to do, and everyone marches to that drum, or beat of that drum. And I'm proud of that. And that's because I have a really bright team. I have good folks who trust that I'll make the best decision, because ultimately it comes down to me. I have to answer to the board for this. But I also know that I trust them to give me the best that they have.
And good leaders do that. Good leaders surround themselves with intelligent people, and they trust them to do the work, and they trust them to tell them the truth. And I call that a united front. Like you say, have the conversations when it's time to have them, but when you're trying to accomplish a mission, it needs to be on a united front. Absolutely great words of wisdom, for sure.
You get too many leaders that just want, this is how I want to do it, let's push it, and people are just too afraid to push back. It's risky. It's risky.
Some of the biggest mistakes you can make to do that. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So Chowan is a private university, as we've already talked about. You're located in northeastern North Carolina. So talk to us about, if you will, some of the challenges that being in that space provides that will be different from if you were a publicly funded university. You talked about the trade-off of maybe some of the bureaucracy, but on the other side of that, what are some of the challenges?
Yeah, and especially during this time of the pandemic, when we've seen 3 separate types of CARES Acts that have come through. One under certainly Trump, then under Biden we have 2, and the third is still yet to really materialize. The one thing I do know is that those 3 have included monies for all of education, K-12 all the way through graduate programs, and including private and public colleges and universities. But as we move forward in this, private colleges and universities are really going to have to develop a market and develop their place in the marketplace to be able to withstand the fact that the publics are going to get monies, the community colleges are going to get monies, privates won't necessarily in this infrastructure deal. So we are going to have to be very unique and innovative. Right now, we have a number of things that are fighting against us in North Carolina, and NC Promise, while it's fantastic for students to be able to go to Elizabeth City, Pembroke, and Carolina, relatively inexpensive, I'm going to say relatively about $15,000 because of room and board if you decide to stay on campus. Community college may become free in Virginia. Biden's administration looking at community college all over the country being free. It is inevitable that private colleges and universities are going to have to evolve with the trend. And we're going to have to make sure that we stay relevant. And that might mean that there's a reduction in price of colleges and universities across the board, because the help with the Pell Grant and the doubling of Pell that may be coming as early as this next year. Also with Biden administration looking at wiping out as much as $50,000 of all student debt. I still don't know how that will work, but the most important thing is that we have to make sure our price point is realistic. We are in Murfreesboro, North Carolina. We have a long history of taking students of promise. We have students of promise to students of prominence, and we have to be able to educate all. But we have to be able to get a return on that investment for the student, meaning that where are our students going? How likely are they going to be employed within 2-3 months? What's their debt? And then all those things play a major role, and we're really working on that. And so staying relevant, staying current, and making sure that we're always moving, because if we're not growing, we're dying. And I think that that's a very important message.
I like that. I may have to borrow that one. Students of promise to students of prominence. I like that.
Yeah.
You may hear that one again, Dr. Peterson. That's a good one.
Well, one of the things I'm I'm very proud when I get to hand students their diploma, and this Saturday, Sunday, I get to do it again. But as they come across the stage, we're going to bump fists and a mask on, but they're going to hear me say to each one of them, "Now go change the world. Now go change the world." And I'm going to be blessed in a year to be able to hand my son his diploma from Chowan University. So I believe in it. Not only just have one son, but I'll have two sons at Chowan this next year, and it's. You get emotional about it, but you also are well up with pride, knowing that you're providing something that's good enough. And I put my sons there. Yeah,
I can tell you from experience, I've not been a college president, but I certainly been a principal and superintendent. And both of my sons, my oldest as principal and my youngest as superintendent, I had the opportunity to do that. That there is no greater feeling. There's no greater feeling. Yeah. It was good enough for me to have you hand my youngest his, but certainly doing it myself in those two cases, there's no time like it.
That was a great moment. We were able to point you out up in the stand.
That's right.
And that was great.
Remember that. So, Dr. Peterson, we always try to ask our leaders a question about getting more people into the profession. And while that might not be quite as big of a challenge at higher ed, or maybe it is, what are some ideas that you have to attract more teachers into the profession, especially through the traditional paths, becoming education majors and things of that nature? What can we do?
Well, there's still very few things that I've ever done that gives more satisfaction than seeing that proverbial light bulb go off in a student's head. That moment when he or she goes, "Oh my gosh, I got it. I understand what and having your students then write to you years later, decades later. In fact, 2 weeks ago, I had one of my former students who graduated Chowan. I think it was 2008. Her name's Aquanette Simmons, and she's finishing a PhD at Drexel. And she says to me, "Dr. Peterson, I want to come to Chowan and teach." Oh my gosh.
Awesome.
And I think that we as teachers, we as professors, we as educators and general administrators, it's our job to create the next generation of leaders. So when I have professors and coaches interviewing on campus, I say to them, I said, Chowan may not be your destination, but I promise you, if you give me 4 of your best years, I'll give you a resume to be able to leave. And people often say, "Well, why would you say that?" I said, because it's our job to develop. I was always taught by a very, very wise man, Dr. Charles Hodge. He says, "You're always working for that next job, always working for the next job." And so I kept that in my mind. It's like, how do we advance students from students to colleagues and colleagues as fellow educators as well? So I take great pride in really trying to push students that I see that can do that, but also administration. We have a young man on campus right named Brad Cash, and he's in student life, and he's just a fantastic and dynamic young man. I honestly believe that he gets a PhD, he's going to be able to put his name in the hat for a presidency at some point in his career. And so I'm trying to push him to say, this is what I see for you. And part of that is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If he hears it enough, or others hear it enough, they're going to start thinking, well, Dr. Peterson really believes it. Maybe I can. Right. Because it's not a choice of whether you want to or not. I think it's a choice of whether you will or not. You always have that option to try. But so often, we see those who really put in you may never get to that superintendent, principal, president, but yet there are thousands of people who do. Right. And so it is a matter of patience. It's a matter of also understanding God's timing. God's timing is always perfect, and He never rejects. He always protects. And I think it's a hard lesson to learn when you get that rejection letter for the job. But it's not rejection; it's protection, and you have to have that mindset. But getting folks to think about the career, think about being administrators. Again, I like a lot of the folks I see are former student athletes because they know how to play on team, they know how to work with each other, but they also can take criticism. And it's not that non-student athletes can't do that, there's thousands of people that are far better, as non-student athletes doing that than I have. But I do think that it's very, very important for us to understand that there are skills, God-given, and also capabilities that you develop along the way that can help you become that leader. And here's the other, is that, even in our own career, if we're not growing as a leader, then we're being passed up by someone else.
Right. Got to continue to work to sharpen that mind and look at new things to help us get better.
Absolutely.
Dr. Peterson, thank you so much. If you'll hold on for me for a minute here, we'll be right back with you.
Yes, sir.
My next podcast will be May 13th, 2021 at 7:00 p.m. My guest will be Dr. June Atkinson, who is a former superintendent for the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. She served 2 superintendents ago. Looking forward to having her and uncovering some of her secrets to her successes over the many years that she served as an educational leader in the state of North Carolina. I want you to know that I continue to be amazed at the responses that I've received thus far concerning this podcast. I'm certainly inspired to continue to work to make it even better and to bring you the best educational leaders that I know. As you see so far, we're at episode 10, and the breadth and width of knowledge of these leaders so far has been astounding. I hope that you've been enlightened by and inspired by this insight, and that you will continue to enjoy these podcasts that we are bringing. Dr. Peterson, my friend, I want to thank you so much for being my guest.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate your willingness to be a part of the podcast here and our first higher education leader on the show. Well, and on a personal note, on behalf of my school district, I'm so honored that you've chosen to partner with us to make us better. You're a private university. We're a traditional public school district. Sometimes there are towns and cities and counties where the folks don't even talk, and we interact often. And you have taken a big lead in making sure that happens. And I really do appreciate that, and appreciate the fact that we know that you all are pulling for us and there to help us, and the student teachers that you've given us, given our school district. And I think we've got a partnership right now where we're going to get them to help us do some tutoring over the summer and a little bit of everything. And that makes us better, and we appreciate that.
Well, Wayne,
this platform is open to you anytime.
Well, thank you. You're a very good friend, and I believe in your leadership. And God bless you and your faculty and staff, because you all do remarkable work in this area, and it's a blessing. And you are truly a blessing to this area, because this Hertford County has gone through so many superintendents, and you are now in 5.5, almost 6 years. And God bless you. We look forward to years to come working with you.
Thank you. And thank you to my audience for watching the Wright Experience. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.